All right, welcome. This is, again, another interview in our Alcuin Society series on perseverance, and we're grateful for all those who've participated thus far. This morning, I am privileged to welcome Sitawa Wafula, who is both a student with us and also an employee. She is, at the moment, working as an assistant to Zach Ravolsky, who is the Vice President of Institutional Alignment. So she's got a full-time job there, at least a lot of responsibilities, on top of being a junior in the healthcare management program. And she has a storied past. She comes to us from Nairobi, where she's had not only involvement in society, politics, community there, education. She's got a rich and storied history, and she brings all that to us here at LBC. And so I'm grateful, Sitawa, for your time this morning to talk these things through and help us and as a community understand more what it's like to persevere as one called by God. So let me start out with the same question we start with everyone, and that is, can you just talk a little bit about the particular difficulties and trials God has led you through, that he's called you to persevere through?
I would say the key thing was coming here to Lancaster. So back home, and as you've rightfully mentioned, I ran a mental health social enterprise that was the first to start a free support line, SMS support line for people in my country. So in terms of mental health, not just in Kenya, but across Africa, my name was synonymous with mental health. So coming to Lancaster, where I knew no one, and then being an adult in a class where I had to be with 18 and 19-year-olds, that was one of the many culture shocks that I had to go through. And then back home, we never look at skin color unless you're from South Africa or other countries that went through things like apartheid. A lot of us don't see ourselves based on our skin color. And so that's something I had to learn, and unfortunately had to learn the hard way being here. Other things were support systems. So as I've mentioned, I didn't have a support system when I came here. So I was all I had. So it was hard for me to, get into the system of knowing that I have to still be a student and participate in class like everybody else, despite thinking, am I allowed to say my age in public? Okay, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm in my mid-30s, and I'm in a class with people in their late teenage years or early 20s. And so even when people give examples, I sometimes I'm like, you have a lot of learning to do, but I'll say that in my mind. And so that would make it harder. And then also being an international student, and I guess a lot of international students can attest to this, is like some of the examples we give, or some of the examples the professors give in class, are things that we cannot really relate to. Sometimes you're in a class where a lot of people are just from Lancaster, and so they give an example that's just from Lancaster. I remember there's a day when I was still very new, they were talking about Auntie Anne's, the pretzel company. Right. And I thought it was someone's aunt. And and everybody knew who Auntie Anne was. So I remember I wrote on my notebook, I have to meet Auntie Anne because I wanted to be part of the conversation next time. And so it might look like small things, but they're small things that at the end of the day really add up to big things that really affect you emotionally and mentally and really drain you. And so you have all that, and you do not have at the beginning a supportive community because you're yet to make friends. Lancaster is also a place where you either need a car or you need a sort of some sort of mobility. I didn't have that at the beginning. So there are a lot of things that if you look back, they look like really small things, but they really added up to big things. And so looking back, and I'm thinking, I had a life, I had a company, I had people I had employed, and I was thinking about their salaries. I was thinking about flights. I was thinking about conferences. I was thinking about meetings with the Ministry of Health back in Kenya. And now I am here in Lancaster and I need toothpaste. And this is one of the moments that really broke me down, that I need toothpaste and I need to look for someone to ask if they can drive me to Giant to get toothpaste, because it was in the spring, and I couldn't walk to Giant because of the weather and all that. So I needed someone to drive me. And I'm thinking, what have I done to myself that I'm moving from booking flights to go speak at the UN to wonder who I need to talk to take me to Giant to buy a tube of toothpaste. And so that really messed me up. That really messed me up. And there's so many other examples that made me think, why am I here? What am I doing here? And it all always went back to, why did I say yes to coming here? And as much as I did finish my undergrad because of ill health, it was also something that through prayer and fasting and listening, I knew God needed me to be here. And so that is one of the many things that helped me, even when I thought, okay, I'm done. I came, I saw, now I know there's a place called Lancaster. I'm done. Like, I had so many of those moments where I was like, I'm done.
So, and I think it's helpful for the listeners here, and you've already said a little of your backstory, that your influence and the position you were and the experience you've had. You've said you've got TED Talk under your belt. You spoke at the UN. Most of us have never been to the UN. Some students may not even know that there is a UN. This is your life, and then you've got to go and start at this low level. And in light of that very difficult transition, what were some of the specific temptations you faced as you had to embark on this and then face this on a daily basis?
One of them was going back home. One of them was going back home and saying, I'm done with this. Another one was, and I remember I started that email so many times because I just came to Lancaster a few months after I'd spoken at the UN in New York, and a lot of offers that I'd gotten in terms of being a global mental health ambassador. And I said no to that and chose coming to school instead. And so a lot of times I started that email asking, is that position still open? I'm actually in the US, so it'll make things a little bit easier because then I'm not coming in from Kenya. And I started that email so many times. So many times I left class and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. So that was one of the temptations, just going back to how things were. There's also the temptation of giving up in terms of I can stay and I can just be like not care about anything. Like, I'm here. I've sort of burnt my boat, the way people say when you go to a place. So I sort of said goodbye to a lot of things and said no to a lot of things to make the decision to come here. So in a sense, I burnt that boat. But then now that I'm here and things are not working out, it felt there was the temptation of, I'll just let these years pass by, whatever happens. So there's also that temptation.
And those are serious temptations, especially when, as you say, it's the adding up of all of these little things that must have just been a constant pressure on you, not fitting in, not knowing what to do, not having to be around populations you don't understand. I mean, I can imagine that being a very difficult environment. It's very thick. Yeah. And what in light of that, how did God help you? What kind of ways did he give you the spirit to persevere through these? Because I would imagine perseverance didn't look like overcoming in the moment. Persevering probably looked like just putting one foot in front of the other. How did God help you in that?
Okay. I cried a lot. So that was one of those, because it was emotionally and mentally draining. So there are a lot of those times where I cried to myself and I also cried to God. And it was, okay, I am so sure that this is where you want me to be. But, it's like the way Moses said, if you don't go with me, I can't move. And it was one of those really from deep down. In Africa, we talk about, I know I'm seated, but I'm pointing at my belly, the lower part of my belly, where if someone is expressing joy or they're expressing sorrow, if it's real, it comes from down here. It's not like now if I laugh, it will just sort of come from, it's from here. But when I have laughter that's coming from deep within me, it comes from here. If I have pain that's from deep within me, it comes here. And so that's sort of the cry that I used to have when I have my conversations with God. It wasn't, oh God, this is hard, but it was from deep down there that this is hard and I can't do this without you. And so having those types of cries and conversations with God, it wasn't like an automatic thing that then I feel okay, but there's some peace, like a distant peace that I would feel, but then it wasn't immediate. And it was something that even just the same as the pain was small bits of pieces that came together. That's the way that peace. It was like, it's not okay now. It's not going to be okay tomorrow. You still need to look for someone else to help you go buy soap or help you go buy whatever you need tomorrow. But it's small things that show you that it's gonna be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week, but it's gonna be okay. Another thing is just building community. And it was, again, hard because, lack of mobility and all those things made things a little bit harder. But I would say the international community here, Praveen has been amazing to all of us as international students. Working at CML and just the leadership there from Dr. Rick Cruz, who's no longer with us at LPC, and Dr. Zimmerman and Aaron Brown. So they're people who just tapped in Reverend Rivalsky, Zach Rivalsky, way before I even started working with him. So that community, the Kenyans living in Lancaster. So I was talking to my dad and they're like, the Kenyans in Lancaster. So so community has been helpful. And back home, we say that it takes a community to help raise a child. So yes, it took a community to help raise this child in Lancaster. So those are some of the things that, and just going back to the lessons that, and this is in hindsight, because when you're in there, and I think you mentioned this, it's just a day at a time. And I remember there are times I'd sit down and just say, what do I have to do for the next 2 hours? I was not even thinking about what I'll eat in the evening or just for the next 2 hours. I just need to make it through this class. That's all I think about. What do I need to do after that class? That's all I think about. So it's been gradual things, small things, and it's not that I am a person who embraces, I don't know what the English word would be for that. So based on my work, I've done a lot of challenging things. And so I'm not a person who easily embraces help. Like I want to fight it till the end. And so that's one of the many lessons that I've learned through this process, to ask for help and not to feel shame in asking for help, and to know that perseverance, based on the word that we're using now, it's not about, oh, I did it on my own and I'm victorious on my own, look at me. But it's about those small things, like saying I need help, like crying, like, yeah, it's not always that, oh, you made it out and you have no scars or no wounds to show it for it. It's I'm still here. For me, that's what perseverance is. I'm still here.
And I think something you said in there is really, it resonates with other conversations I'm having around this topic, but is the idea that you said, you use this reference from Exodus 33, where I won't go without God. And the fact that you feel this peace is something that's distant, it's not, but that you know, because the God of peace is with you. So it's not the circumstances, right? It's not the circumstances that you're evaluating. It's knowing that God is actually there with you, which you see, I guess you say, through the village, through the community around you. How do you, I mean, because I talk to students sometimes and everyone say, well, I just don't feel God is there. Is that true? Do we just not feel them sometimes and we just know he's there? Or how do we manage that?
I think so. Sometimes, especially when you're in the thick of things, all you see is the thickness because that's what's in front of you and it's constantly in front of you at that moment. But it also, and I think this is where other people come into play because all you see is that thickness, and then you need someone and people to remind you, and not to remind you once, but remind you constantly. So, and at the beginning, people will say, oh, it's going to be okay. And I remember saying, but you don't understand. You're from here. This is your environment. You know, you grew up experiencing this type of weather. Because like when I said every little thing used to tick me off, everything, including opening the door and seeing snow. I'm like, what? Can't I just have one nice thing today? So then it'll be like, you don't understand based on that, or you don't understand because you didn't have the type of lifestyle I had, or you don't understand. But then they kept at it. They kept at it that it's gonna be okay, that we are here for you. They kept at it. What do you need? What do you need? Even if it's just sitting in silence, I'm here with you. And so to answer your question, yes, there are times it feels like God is not there with me because it's the thick of things that's right in front of you. And it's sort of, as I said, it's everywhere. It's in the classroom with Auntie Anne's. It's outside when you see the snow. No offense to Auntie Anne's, but but then you need things of people or situations that keep reminding you that God is there. Because at the end of the day, we are still human and we still fall, we still fail. And that's where the forgetfulness comes in. But then we also live in a fellowship with other people, and it's their role as a brothers or sisters keeper to remind us. And so that's what community did for me. It kept reminding me that he's there until I could feel it, first of all, from a distance, and then with the surety that I have now that it's gonna be okay. It is okay.
That is really helpful and enlightening, and to hear from your experiences. And I think I'm hearing a lot of this too about community and church and making sure we're around other believers. It seems to be a theme that's repeated. Sitawa, thank you so much. This has been very insightful, and I'm glad to do these interviews because I always learn about experiences much more broad and much more difficult than my own. So I'm learning a great deal in the process. So thank you for your time. It's really been insightful.
Okay, thank you.